Boker Tov. Yesterday we explained what we are searching for when we clean the house for Pesach. And we explained that what we are looking for is a kazait of chametz, a substantial amount of chametz, not just a few crumbs around the house. However, it's important to note that this does not include places in which food will come into contact with during the course of Pesach. Anywhere where food is being prepared or being eaten during Pesach, that needs to be checked even for crumbs. So in the kitchen, the dining room table, these are places where food will be prepared or consumed throughout the duration of Pesach. Such places need to be cleaned properly, even for tiny bits of chametz, because obviously there's the concern that a few crumbs may come into a person's food during Pesach itself. Now, where does the person need to check when they are searching for chametz? So it's very clear in the Shulchan Aruch that any place which chametz has been brought into during the course of the year needs to be checked for chametz. One needs to do a search and one needs to clean there. So any place in the house where sometimes during the year, even if it's occasional only, chametz is brought into there, needs to be searched for a kazait of chametz. So if a person sometimes brings food up to the bedrooms, then those do need to be checked. However, any place where chametz is never brought in during the course of the year, if there is a strict policy that no food is brought upstairs, no food is brought into the bedroom, then such places do not need to be checked for Pesach. Similarly, a place like a shed, where chametz is never brought there, the Shulchan Aruch talks about storehouses, where you store food, where you store things, where food's never brought into. Chametz is never brought into such places. You don't need to check those places for chametz. So similarly, places like the bathroom and the toilet where food would never be brought into, these places do not need to be cleaned or checked for chametz. The exception to this is if there are young children in the house. If there are young children in the house, then there is the concern that they may have brought chametz into places where chametz is not usually brought. And so if there are young children around the house, then indeed the entire house needs to be checked. Even places where parents wouldn't normally bring chametz in, nonetheless, children have a knack of taking food to all kinds of places, and therefore the bathroom, the toilet, and all these places would need to be searched for chametz as well. A person's car, a person's office, anywhere where a person has ownership of food and brings food into that place during the course of the year does need to be checked. Does a person's pockets need to be checked for chametz? Again, if a person never puts food into their pockets, indeed, that would not need to be checked. However, we often do put things into our pockets, into our handbags, etc., and therefore these places do need to be checked, especially if a person will be putting stuff into his pockets during the course of Pesach, then one needs to search even for the crumbs. This is why it's written that some have the minhag to check the pockets even for crumbs. This is because if you have a tendency to put food into your pockets, then we're concerned that you may put food into your pockets on Pesach and there may be crumbs there, and therefore you have to search even for crumbs. However, if a person never puts food into their pockets, then there would be no need to check these places for chametz. Now, the Chachamim instituted that apart from getting rid of the chametz, which we've talked about today and yesterday, on the night before Pesach, we do a bedikat chametz and we search for the chametz. Now, the reason they instituted this in the night is because people are busy during the day before Pesach, and also in the night you'll use a candle and you'll be able to check in the corners of the house with the flame of the candle more precisely. And that's why we do it at night. However, if a person didn't do it at night, for whatever reason, they were traveling or they were unable to do it at night, one still has an obligation to do bedikat chametz the day before Pesach, during the day of Erev Pesach. In fact, if a person didn't do bedikat chametz before Pesach, the halakha is they need to check and do bedikat chametz even during the course of Pesach. The entire 8 days of Pesach. If a person remembered during the course of Pesach, I forgot to do bedikat, he still has to do it the entire week of Pesach, which shows how important this mitzvah is. In fact, I'll add in quickly, is the halakha is if a person didn't do bedikat chametz neither before Pesach or even during Pesach, one still has to do bedikat chametz after Pesach. Why on earth would you be doing bedikat chametz after Pesach? This is because there is a halakha that chametz, which a person owned during the course of Pesach, is forbidden to have any benefit from the entire year round. And so if a person didn't do bidikat chametz during the course of Pesach or before, then he still needs to check his house after Pesach, because if there was any chametz in his home during the course of Pesach, that chametz would still have to be disposed of after Pesach. So this is an important mitzvah and should be done, of course, on the night before Pesach, but if that's not done, it should still be done the day before Pesach. Finally, the bracha which we recite is al bi'ur chametz, which means the disposal of chametz. Even though in the night we are searching for chametz, nonetheless that's the bracha which we make, because the searching is the beginning of the disposal. We search in order that we can get rid of it the next day. So that's why we say the bracha al bi'ur chametz and not al bidikat chametz on the night of the checking. So in conclusion, we have explained that we are checking for a kazait of chametz, although in places where a person eats on Pesach or prepares food on Pesach, then one needs to search for crumbs. We've explained that a person only needs to check chametz in places where chametz is brought, unless there are children around, then one needs to check everywhere where children go. So this would mean, by the way, that top shelves of cupboards in bedrooms where children can't access and you never put chametz there, that would not need to be checked. And we explained that bidikat chametz is done the night before, although if one didn't do it, the obligation continues all the way through during Pesach and after. Have a wonderful day.